Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Wanted to welcome you all today to Connect the Dots. We're both live streaming, so welcome to anybody who might be live streaming as well. We are going to try and archive this as well so that we'll have information for people to utilize as they move forward. As well, if you want to, we've been trying to do some social media, and so on Twitter, it's going to be hashtag Autism Connects. If you want to have some communication and back channel conversation in relationship to the overall presentations for today. Some logistical matters to start with. In your conference holder here, the first thing is that we made for you is a map, because we do know that it can be somewhat of a maze here, but part of what we want to do, going on the theme of connecting the dots, is being able to find our way around even complicated places. When you came in the entrance lobby, you have the library, and in the library are resources there that we're encouraging you that during break and during lunch, going over there, and as well to the community room where some of our partners are who have different elements in regard to handouts and more resources available for you. The AT corner, which is in the back part of the library as well, and then you can follow the little feet that bring you around to all the way around here is where we are in the classroom. Okay, and then for the next presentation later on today is going to be an MCR 3, which is going to be back around this way, and lunch is going to be in MCR 2. Okay, so going through your packet as well, you have an Autism Connects magnet that will give you the resource for the CT-SLP here, the State Education Resource Center, and having information in relationship to future trainings and those elements that you might need available for you. As well as in the packet on the left are other helpful resources for families of Connecticut that lists all the different resources available. We have your certificate of attendance, and then as well your evaluation form, and this can be filled out anytime during the day and handed to any CREC employee. On the right hand side has the handouts for the different sessions for today, with the agenda being that you are in using visual supports for individuals with autism spectrum disorder. As well, connecting the dots secondary transition is going to be occurring at the same time, so that this goes from 9 to 10:30, and there's going to be a break at 10:30, 12:15. That's when connecting the dots secondary transition is going to be happening. So those people will be coming in here, you going over there. There's going to be lunch provided at MCR 2 from CREC. And then 1 to 2:30 is going to be transition to college for students with autism, and then navigating and planning the placement team process. Both of those are going to be happening in the classroom and MCR 3 as well. What we do want you to do is during the breaks is to certainly go and visit our partners, and we'd like to thank our partners for being with us with Discovery Toys, the CT Tech Act, Department of Developmental Services, the Autism Division, DDS, the USED, Growing Potential Services, ASRC, Cricket Software, Tutor Doctor, CREC, Ability Beyond, Connect to Work, and CREC. As well as we'd like to thank those organizations that have donated elements for this event today, in particular Lock Stock Bagels for the breakfast, Angela Woodson in relationship to cupcakes on behalf of Eric Henderson, and Frito-Lay for chips. So speaking of which, we're going to be doing the visuals, using visual supports for individuals with autism. With me today is Carolann Cormier and Nicole Natale. They're both intricate in relationship to writing the book, Educator's Toolbox, Resources for Improving Student Outcomes, Assistive Technology Guide to Maximize Learning for Students with Autism. And they have a booth in relationship to order forms for the book, and as well for any resources they might have. So I just wanted to say today that, spring has begun. Thankfully, it's been a long, hard summer, winter. I wish it was summer. Long winter. And this morning I was, really excited, because spring is for the beginnings. And so I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a run this morning. I'm going to go out and get out there and run. And about 2 minutes into the run, I had to go back to the house because I forgot something. I forgot that I hate running and that I'm really out of shape. But what I don't want you to forget is that there are resources available for families and educators who work with individuals on the spectrum. And today, starting today, one of the resources is in regard to assistive technology and as well other elements that you'll be able to look at through our partners and for the day. So enjoy the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
So today we're going to talk about visuals. We just wanted to point out in the book Nicole and I wrote, this is actually only one chapter in the book. So if you get a chance to check out our booth, and we have a book back there, we covered 13 chapters in the area of assistive technology for individuals with autism. And we wrote it because we wanted something practical with tips for individuals to try. I mean, everything's research-based, but we wanted a place that people could go to find quick and easy things, well, a lot of quick and easy things that Nicole and I have been using and suggesting over the years.
Yeah.
So.
And it's based on our practice over the years, like Carolann indicated. And just to give you a little background, both Carolann and I are speech-language pathologists and also assistive technology practitioners for CREC. And we're all over the state providing assistive technology services for students who have communication needs and also access to the curriculum and a wide variety of supports. But we also work a lot with individuals with autism. So before we get started, can you raise your hand? Who here is a parent of a child with autism? Okay, we've got a few parents here. How about special educators? Get dual roles. Related service staff, speech-language pathologists, OT, PT, social work. Okay, any others?
Regular ed teachers?
You have general ed? No general ed? Oh, okay. Well, it's wonderful to see you all here today. We're just going to do, we'll go over the schedule. We're going to do a brief overview of visual supports today, why they're important. Then if you'll see, today we have 5 different station setups. Carolann and I don't like to be the sage on the stages. We like to have everybody interacting with the materials and looking at resources and have this be as functional as possible. So for an hour, you're all going to be going around, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, to each of the stations. There's a bunch of resources on each station for different types of visual supports, and hopefully you'll get some good ideas there, and then we're going to wrap up at the end.
Okay, so today our objectives are that you'll be able to describe supports and evidence-based information for students with ASD, identify skills that you can really promote with the use of visual supports, the different types of visual supports that could be used and when they could be used, and learn about resources for providing visual supports.
And one more logistical point. In your packet, you have a massive PowerPoint. Linda, the wonderful Linda here, printed it out for you. It's actually not necessarily intended, it's not really intended to go with what we're saying. The first few slides are. It's meant to be a resource. We also have, if you see back there, there's a bunch of QR codes, and we will cut some of these out. If you have a QR code reader, don't worry about it for now. You can download a free one on the App Store. You can scan this and have a link to this presentation on Google Docs, on Google Drive, so you'll always have it. And I do believe I sent the link to Linda, so I do think it's on the website as well. So you can click the link on the website, and this PowerPoint has a huge amount of links and materials, right?
That will be active if you download it.
Right, but what will also be important is at the very end of your PowerPoint, there is a note-taking guide. We have a little toolbox here, and when we do go around to the stations, just so you know, you'll be taking this around to take notes on your tools that you're seeing at the stations and ideas you might want to use with your students and children you're working with. Okay? It should be the very last page.
It's actually a separate unstapled sheet.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, so without further ado, we wanted to show a quick video of Temple Grandin because is everybody familiar with Temple Grandin? Yeah. No, so she's a woman with with autism. She has Asperger's, and she is a super successful, what do we even call, agricultural?
Yeah, behavioral specialist.
Yeah.
She actually designs, which sounds awful, but slaughterhouses that are more humane. She has her doctorate in, I don't know if it's animal behavioral science, but she's a worldwide known woman in that she goes around and she talks about what it's like to have autism. She's written quite a few books. Her books are phenomenal to read, one of them being The Thinking in Pictures that became the movie.
So we're going to show a little video of her for the first few minutes of her at a TED Talk. And so just a little background, a TED Talk is a technology talk, so there's lots of technology people in the audience, and she's talking about being an individual with autism and also some of her work. While you're watching it, we'd like you to think about what she's talking about in terms of visual supports, and then how we can connect that to the students we work with. Turn to your neighbor and talk about some of the takeaways you got from that video in terms of what this very successful individual is talking about and the connections we can make with how important visuals are for the students we work with. So go ahead and take a minute and then we'll share out. Giveaway for the first responder. Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, let's wrap up the conversations. Would anybody like to share out some connections they made through this video? Have a seat. Anyone? Yep, go ahead.
Melissa and I were just sharing that we thought it was typical to think visually, that we play images in our heads. I feel like my life is a movie in my head. I have a soundtrack.
Yep.
You know, it feels very normal and natural to me. And
Right.
she has the same experience.
Interesting. And also you get our first giveaway of the day for participating. It's a phone holder. Anybody else? Any other connections about the visuals that she was talking about?
So how many people feel like they're visual thinkers? Yeah, I'm definitely visual. And when we look at education, about 80% of individuals are visual thinkers.
Teachers. Right, or children?
People.
People? Okay.
All people are visual
I
thinkers.
thought it was tactile kinesthetic.
I
Yeah.
thought it was 80%.
Doesn't matter. It's a lot.
That are visual thinkers. And if we think about our educational presentation, where did we do a great job in using visuals? Like what grades? Elementary, like preschool, kindergarten. And think about high school and college and graduate school and what happens to the visuals. They go away. But yeah, the majority of us, we would benefit if those visuals just continued throughout our educational system. So I think, when we talk about using visuals with students with ASD, I find the more you use visuals, the more everyone benefits, myself included. So.
And what does she say we need to get away from? She says it very clearly. Getting away from what? Verbal, the verbal language, right? And like Carolann said, a lot of our presentations are verbal. So we're going to skip past this next slide. This is the overview of communication characteristics for students with autism. You can look at it. I think this room is pretty familiar with some of the communication characteristics, but we wanted to talk about what are visual supports. So we're asking you, what do you see as a visual support? What is it? If you had to define visual support. No?
I'm a teacher of the deaf.
Yep.
And I'm using a smartboard
Smartboard?
where you actually have like the picture of the book, and you can use multiple modalities where the children can be involved to see the picture and also see the text as well as be, get up there and actually physically act out the story. It makes a much better progression for them than if you just sit there and just have them read the story.
Sure. What else? How would you define a visual support? Anybody? Yep, go ahead.
Using pictures, like I'm a preschool teacher, so we use a lot of books with no words, and it's really beneficial for the second language speaking children, because sometimes you might be presenting something and you think that they do not understand or they cannot relate, but it's because they speak another language. So using a book with no word is really helpful.
Great. Okay.
And you had something to check?
Okay.
Oh, I just was
Good to
thinking
hear.
that it's also anything you see visually. Sometimes it's a modeling aspect. If somebody shows and does something like that and the students can see it in that way or the individuals see it that way, or if it's a symbol that they learn to associate with something, so then that's will work for them.
Great. Karen, one last
I
question.
was just thinking, pictures, but for scheduling for the kids, so they know what's next.
Sure. Okay, go ahead. So this is the actual definition from the National Research Council about what visual supports are. But basically, it's any tool presented visually that supports an individual as he or she moves throughout the day. And there's a lot of examples of visual supports that we're going to talk about next. We did want to make sure everybody knew visual supports are part of evidence-based practice for individuals with autism. And they can be used across the age range, of course. And we wanted to point out this slide, and the next one have numerous links to studies and research-based practice on the use of visual supports for individuals with autism. And this one, especially down here, was part of a federally funded project to look at all the evidence-based practice and education for individuals with autism and to delineate what are the best evidence-based or the most research-based supports, right, for students with autism. So this report is really helpful, and this is a few more of links from that site. So we know that they're effective based on the research. This is a quote from Wood that talks about augmenting the message in terms of visual support. So visual supports can also help what Temple Grandin was talking about in terms of getting away from the verbal language. They can also augment that verbal language to help individuals understand that verbal language. Okay, so we're going to show one last video. It's a quick one. And it's, again, about visuals, so...
And if you've seen it before,
don't give it away. Yes. So we're going to watch it, and then we're going to think about its implications. It's actually a real commercial, or public service announcement.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make? The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
So how many people saw the moonwalking bear?
Oh, a few people.
Hey, all right, that's more than usually see it. So it makes us think about really the importance of visuals, but what we use as a visual. So individuals that see the details might see that moonwalking deer and not take in anything else. Other people that might see the whole picture, so it's like the forest versus the trees, might totally miss the detail of the moonwalking deer. So when we look at the visuals we give our students, we have to make sure that those visuals are what we want the student to see and not the moonwalking bear.
See, it's interesting to me because they asked you to pay attention to the pattern. So to me, that was somewhat focusing on those details.
Well, and they did that on purpose.
Right.
So, but if you think about our students, even if we tell them to pay attention to the passes, they might be looking for that moonwalking bear. So an example that is in one of the books back here, the activity schedules book, that really kind of opened my eyes. Right here, it's part of the topics in autism. If you're not aware of these books, there's a whole series, phenomenal books. This happens to be one of my favorite books, but it talks about an example of an individual, a gentleman at his house that had an activity schedule, and on his schedule was a picture of the vacuum. And he knew how to vacuum, he knew how to follow his activity schedule, and the team were all confused because whenever he saw that picture, he would go and get candy. And they couldn't understand it. It's like the picture of the vacuum. Why is he getting candy? He follows everything else. And when they looked at the picture in detail, it turned out that in a corner of the picture was a tiny corner of the coffee table. And at his home, his parents always kept a dish of candy on the coffee table. So even though everybody thought this is a pretty straightforward picture, what's the problem? He was seeing that tiny detail, and that tiny detail held more importance to him than the big picture. Which for me too, coffee table, candy, vacuuming. Yeah, you know, the choice is made. So we really have to be careful. We can say we're putting visuals in place, but it's really critical that we look at what visuals we're putting in place.
So speaking of what visuals, we've mentioned a few, but go ahead and share out what are types of visual supports in general that we use with students with autism or students in general. Social stories. Social stories, visual support. What else?
Picture schedules.
Picture schedules, so within activities, so schedules that help with tasks, and then between activities, schedules throughout the day.
So we're talking about two different types of schedules here. Often when I see schedules put in place, they're the between activities. So they're kind of a picture for the big activity, but then we have to look at some of our students need within activity, meaning a picture for every single step. Even if we think about the arrival routine and the kids hanging up their backpacks, there's probably 20 steps between getting off the bus and hanging up your backpack.
Yeah. What else? What other examples? Yep.
Smart boards, ULS program, or News to You.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Smart boards, great.
Boards with pictures to the words too.
Any others? Okay, there's a few more. Let's see what we have up here. So visual schedules, adapted books can be considered visual supports, routine and rule cards, contingency plans. If you do this, you'll get that. If you make this choice, this is what will happen. Aided language stimulation, which is a technique about augmenting language and showing students visually the language that's coming. Labeling the environment. I know the preschool is usually really good at that, right? Labeling the environment with pictures, with text. Social stories. Communication systems can be considered visual supports. Graphic organizers, and visual instruction plans. So we use visual supports for a number of reasons: to help comprehension, to help behavior, to create schedules for classroom management, to make expectations clear. And one of my biggest reasons for using visual supports is to decrease the need for adult prompting, to improve and increase independence. So even if you have a student who doesn't necessarily need visual supports to help access the curriculum or for communication, if we as adults are verbally prompting them through routines and to get places, and even simple routines like taking out homework, we'd like to then take that verbal away and give that student a visual support. And why do we like to do that?
So, if you think about your individuals that kind of wait for you to tell them the next step, does anybody have people like that they work with? Yeah. I work part-time at DBS at night, and my clients are so prompt dependent. They're just waiting for me to tell them what to do. How do we make that verbal prompt shorter? Is it possible? I mean, can I just say part of the word to my clients? Probably not. They might not understand me. But if I can give them a visual picture that takes me out of the picture, what a difference it can make to that person's life. So we always say, look where you're talking a lot and think about what visuals you can put in place. An example, I did an observation a while ago, and it was in a music class. And the youngster I was observing, his paraprofessional, who was absolutely phenomenal, asked him to sit down 25 times in 5 minutes. And she wasn't aware if she was asking him, it's just everybody else was sitting down. And my suggestion after that was you ask him once, you wait, and then you go through a hierarchy, but you also have a picture available of the sit down. And then you don't have to ask him again. You're showing him the visual. They put that in place. He saw the picture. He sat down. So giving him that visual. The other thing it did, though, is that she used that visual for any student in the class. So it wasn't just her student, but it also took the attention away from the student with special needs because the other kids weren't seeing him being told to do something 25 times.
We always say verbal prompts are the easiest to give, but they're the hardest to take away. So we want to give students student-owned tools that they can have to access and to use to help improve their independence. Last thing about visual supports. So what visual supports do you use as a person to get through your life?
Yes. Like pictorial directions for like assembly versus reading.
IKEA, right?
Right. So much easier to read step by step.
Right. The IKEA directions are all it drives some people crazy, but they're visual for a reason, right? They're all across the world and they have really good visual support, so it doesn't matter what language you speak, right? So I'm much better with pictures or videos. I watch videos. Not that I assemble things, but to do other things.
I'm here for my students with the deaf school, but also my son, who's also on the spectrum. And he is incredible with Legos and directions where there's no words involved.
Nope, they're beautiful.
Just put this piece, and he can do Harry Potter, Hogwarts, the entire Diagon Alley in about an hour.
Wow.
Without any words involved because it's all through visual pictures.
Picture and video. What else? What else do we use? Yep, go ahead.
I cannot remember phone numbers, so on my phone I rely on the person's picture coming up.
Yeah.
So every contact has a picture. Otherwise, even if it says Jane, I don't know who Jane is.
I'm the same way. So friends growing up, before we had smartphones, thank you very much for smartphones, if I gave somebody a phone number, including myself, my roommate would be, you're reading that, aren't you? And I'd be like, yeah, how do you know? She's like, because you don't remember anything that fast. And she was absolutely right. So, so I'm somebody who relies on visuals. I have a list all over my house.
Right.
On my phone, on iDevices, my computer, paper, all over the house.
What else do we use? A few more. Go ahead.
Icons.
Icons, how so?
On a desktop.
Yeah.
On any type of mobile device.
Yeah.
I mean, who actually reads the word Pinterest under the big red?
Right.
Icons and where they're located. So that, that location, when they change programs and they change locations, that have a mess.
Yeah. A few more. Yep, go ahead.
I would say like visual color.
Color.
Colors.
Coding.
Color coding. What other visuals do we use in our environment to make us functioning humans?
Like traffic signs.
Traffic signs. Thank you. Where would we be without traffic signs? What else? Any others? Yep, go ahead.
Environmental signs.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Exit, coffee, right? Bathroom.
McDonald's. Brands.
Right. I would be nowhere without my calendar. Calendars are visual supports. I have a calendar, a work calendar, a Google calendar. They all sync. I know where I am, where my husband's going to be. I would be lost. I would just be twirling around somewhere if I didn't have my calendar. And I always give the example of my wonderful husband who can never remember to bring his lunch. Never to work. We figured it out. Well, there's two ways. We're going to try the second one. But the first one we finally figured out was a sticky note on the door to the garage. That way, if he got all the way down to the garage and he saw the sticky note, he was already ready at that point. Then he could go back up, because we tried a sticky note on the counter. That didn't work because there was too much distractions down the steps and with the shoes and all that kind of stuff. So it was at the garage, at the handle, take your lunch. But now we're going to try putting his keys in the lunchbox. Someone told me that. So that's not really a visual support. He can't get very far. So we might try that one next. I'm not sure. But one of the points we want to drive home is we use visual supports every day, right? They are super critical. They're super important. And something I think both Carolann and I hear in our practice working with educators sometimes is, well, he doesn't need visuals anymore. He's past that. We took the visuals away. Now, granted, some students work with visuals and they learn the routine and they don't really need to look back to those visuals anymore, but that doesn't mean we don't stop using visual supports for individuals, especially students with autism who need them so critically.